The cockpit erupted in flashing red light. Warning alarms screamed from every console as the cargo ship shuddered violently around Jiho. The deck lurched beneath his feet. Somewhere deep inside the vessel, twisted metal groaned like a wounded animal. Then came another explosion. The entire ship bucked sideways. A shower of sparks burst from the overhead panels, filling the cockpit with the sharp smell of burning circuits. Jiho tightened his grip on the controls until his knuckles turned white. His heart hammered against his ribs. The ship was dying, and it was taking him with it. "Not today," he muttered through clenched teeth. A new warning flashed across the main display. Engine failure, critical reactor instability detected. Estimated time to containment breach, 2 minutes 14 seconds. Jiho didn't need the computer to tell him how bad things were. He could feel it. Every vibration, every grinding impact. Every second the ship stayed in the air felt borrowed. Frantically, he searched the world spinning beneath him. An endless ocean of green filled the view screen. Dense jungle stretched from horizon to horizon, broken only by towering mountains hidden beneath layers of mist. No cities, no settlements, no emergency beacons, no landing platforms. Nothing, just wilderness. Miles and miles of untouched wilderness. "Come on," Jiho whispered. "There has to be something." The planet offered no answer. Gravity seized the crippled freighter and dragged it downward like prey caught in the jaws of a predator. The ship began to fall faster and faster. The clouds rushed toward him. Warning sirens merged into one continuous scream. The control stick shook violently in his hands as another engine exploded behind him. A section of the instrument panel went dark. Smoke filled the cockpit. Jiho stared at the jungle growing larger by the second. If he couldn't find a place to land, he wasn't going to survive the next minute. Then suddenly, a clearing, small, barely visible through the clouds. But it was there, a patch of open ground hidden among the endless sea of trees. Jiho's eyes widened. "That's my shot." The cargo ship plunged toward the clearing. The alarms screamed louder. The hull began tearing itself apart. And for the first time since the disaster began, Jiho allowed himself a single dangerous thought. If he could survive the landing, whatever waited for him down there might be even worse. He aimed for a clearing near a river and held on tight. The ship hit the ground hard, tearing through trees and dirt. Jiho's head slammed against the side panel. Everything went black for a moment. When his eyes opened again, smoke filled the cabin. He coughed and unbuckled his safety belt. The emergency exit hissed open. Jiho climbed out onto the wet ground. Rain fell from dark purple clouds, and the air smelled strange, like burning metal and flowers mixed together. His cargo ship was ruined, bent, and broken in half. At least he was alive. Jiho pulled out his emergency kit from the ship: medical supplies, some food packets, a basic tent, and a small plasma torch. Not much, but it would have to work. He activated his emergency beacon. Someone would pick up the signal eventually. He just had to survive until then. The rain got heavier. Jiho moved away from his ship to set up shelter when he heard something. A sound like crying, but not quite human. He stopped and listened. There it was again, coming from beyond the trees. He should have stayed put. That was the rule. Wait for rescue. But the crying continued, desperate and afraid. Jiho cursed under his breath and walked toward the sound. His boots sank into the muddy ground with each step. Through the purple rain, he saw another crashed ship. This one was different, sleeker, and made of materials that seemed to glow faintly. Part of it was buried in the ground, and pieces of it were scattered everywhere. The crying came from inside the wreckage. Jiho climbed over twisted metal, careful not to cut himself on the sharp edges. Inside the ship, everything was broken. Strange symbols covered the walls. In the corner, trapped under a fallen beam, was a small creature. No, not a creature. A child. The child had skin that looked like crystal, changing colors from blue to purple in the dim light. She was tiny, maybe the size of a human 5-year-old. Her large eyes were filled with tears, and she made that crying sound again. One of her legs was stuck under the heavy beam. "Hey, it's okay," Jiho said softly. Even though he knew she probably couldn't understand him, he moved closer slowly, hands up to show he meant no harm. The child shrank back, afraid. Jiho pointed to the beam, and then to himself. He made a lifting motion. The child watched him with those big eyes, as he seemed to understand, and nodded slightly. He grabbed the beam and pulled. His muscles burned with the effort. The beam was heavy, much heavier than it looked. Jay's feet slipped on the wet floor, but he kept pulling. Finally, it moved just enough. The child pulled her leg free and scrambled away from him. Blood dripped from her leg. At least Jay thought it was blood. It was silver and glowed faintly. The child touched her leg and cried harder. Jiho slowly reached for his medical kit. He pulled out bandages and antiseptic spray. "This might hurt a little," he said gently. He cleaned the wound as carefully as he could. The child whimpered but didn't pull away. Jiho wrapped the bandage around her leg and secured it. Not perfect, but better than nothing. Thunder crashed overhead. The rain turned into a downpour. Water started leaking through holes in the crashed ship. Jiho looked at the child. He couldn't leave her here. She would die in this wreck. He held out his hand. The child stared at it, confused. Jiho pointed outside, and then at his shelter location. The child seemed to understand. She placed her small hand in his. Her skin felt warm and hummed slightly, like touching a machine. Jiho carried her back to where he had set up the emergency tent. It was small, barely enough for one person, but they squeezed inside together. He gave her a food packet, but she just looked at it without eating. Different biology, probably different food needs. The child curled up in the corner of the tent, shivering. Jiho took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. She pulled it close and finally stopped crying. Her eyes started to close. "Sleep," Jiho said. "You're safe now." He sat at the tent entrance, keeping watch. The jungle around them was full of strange sounds. Howls and screeches echoed through the darkness. Something large moved through the trees nearby. Jiho gripped his plasma torch, ready to defend them both. 3 days passed like this. During the day, Jiho searched the wrecked ships for anything useful. He found water containers in the alien ship, and what looked like medical equipment. The child followed him everywhere, staying close. She still couldn't eat his food, and Jiho worried about her getting weaker. On the second night, something attacked. A creature with 6 legs and too many teeth tried to get into the tent. Jiho fired his plasma torch, and the creature screamed and ran away, but it left deep scratches on his arm. The child saw the blood and made a worried sound. She touched his arm gently, and her hand glowed brighter. The pain faded a little. "Thanks, kid," Jiho said, managing a smile. Despite the pain, on the 3rd day, the sky lit up with ships, huge ships, bigger than anything Jiho had ever seen. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, made of white metal that reflected the sunlight like mirrors. They descended from the clouds with weapons ready. The child saw them and started making excited sounds. She pointed at the ships and then at herself. These were her people coming to rescue her. Jiho stood up and waved at the ships. Relief washed over him. They were saved. The child grabbed his hand and squeezed it tight. She looked up at him with those large eyes, and Jiho could have sworn she was smiling. He had no idea that saving this one child would change his entire life. He had no idea that her mother was a queen who ruled 1,000 worlds. He had no idea that the simple act of kindness would bind his fate to an empire among the stars. All he knew was that the child was safe, and for now, that was enough. The white ships landed around them like falling stars. Jiho counted at least 20 warships, each one large enough to carry thousands of soldiers. The ground shook as they touched down. Doors opened on the ships, and soldiers poured out wearing armor that glowed with the same crystalline quality as the child's skin. They moved in perfect formation, weapons raised and pointed at Jiho. He slowly raised his hands above his head. The child stepped in front of him, her small body trying to shield him. She spoke in her language, rapid words that sounded like music, and glass chimes mixed together. The soldiers stopped. One of them, taller than the others, with golden markings on his armor, stepped forward. He knelt before the child and spoke to her. She pointed at Jiho and spoke again, her voice urgent. The soldier looked at Jiho with eyes that glowed faintly blue. "You are human," the soldier said in perfect English, though his accent was strange. "Yes," Jiho answered. "My ship crashed here 3 days ago. I found the child in the wreckage. She was hurt." More soldiers surrounded them now. They carried devices that scanned Jiho from head to toe. Lights passed over his body, and the devices beeped softly. One soldier looked at the results, and spoke to the golden-armored leader in their language. "You will come with us," the leader said. It was not a request. Two soldiers grabbed Jiho's arms. Not roughly, but firmly. The child cried out and tried to grab his hand. The golden soldier picked her up gently, speaking soft words to her. She struggled, reaching for Jiho, calling out something that sounded like protector in her musical language. They took Jiho to the largest ship. Inside, everything was clean and bright, with walls that seemed to glow from within. The technology was far beyond anything humans had created. He was led through corridors filled with more soldiers and crew members, all of them staring at him with expressions he couldn't read. They put him in a room that was clearly a cell, though a comfortable one. There was a bench, soft lights, and a panel on the wall that might have been for food or water. The door sealed shut with a sound like singing crystal. Jiho sat down and waited. His arms still hurt from the creature attack, and he was exhausted, but his mind raced with questions. Who were these people? Why was the child so important that an entire fleet came for her? Hours passed. Finally, the door opened. The golden soldier entered, followed by two others carrying scanning equipment. "I am Commander Dejo," the soldier said. "You will answer our questions truthfully. Any lie will be detected." "I've got nothing to hide," Jiho said. They asked him everything. Why was he on this planet? How did he find the child? What did he do to her? Did he harm her in any way? Jiho answered each question honestly while their devices scanned him. He explained the crash, finding her trapped, treating her wound, keeping her safe from the creatures. "You sustained injuries," Dejo said, pointing at Jiho's bandaged arm. "How did this happen?" "Something attacked us on the second night. I fought it off." Dejo spoke to one of the other soldiers who showed him a screen. The commander's expression changed slightly. "Our scanners detected your ship's emergency beacon. We also accessed its black box recording. It shows you defending the princess from a Valoran Night Stalker. You were injured protecting her." "Princess," Jiho repeated. "She's royalty. She is Princess Lyra, daughter of Queen Ashira the Eternal, ruler of the Althean Empire." Dejo's voice was heavy with meaning. "You have been caring for the most important child in 1,000 star systems." Jiho felt his stomach drop. No wonder they came in force. He had been taking care of a princess for 3 days, wrapped in his dirty jacket, feeding her nothing but water. "I didn't know," Jiho said. "I just knew she needed help." "That will be for the queen to judge," Deho said. "She is coming." They left him alone again. Jiho paced the cell, nervous energy running through him. A queen was coming. An alien queen whose daughter he had pulled from a crashed ship. He had no idea if she would thank him or execute him. The door opened again much later. This time, everyone who entered knelt immediately. Jiho stood up, unsure what to do. She entered the room like a force of nature. Queen Ashiro was tall, taller than any human with the same crystalline skin as her daughter, but more refined, more beautiful. Her skin shifted through colors like a sunset frozen in ice. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and a crown of crystal that floated above her head without touching it. Her eyes were the color of deep space filled with stars. Behind her, holding Deho's hand, was Princess Lyra. The child saw Jiho and broke free, running to him. She wrapped her arms around his legs, speaking rapidly in her language. "Lyra," the queen said, her voice like music from an ancient instrument. "Come here." The princess shook her head and held Jiho tighter. She spoke to her mother, pointing at Jiho's bandaged arm, touching the scratches on his face from the jungle branches. Queen Ashira knelt down, which shocked everyone in the room. Queens did not kneel. She spoke softly to her daughter in their language. Lyra answered, and Jiho caught that word again. Protector. The queen stood and looked at Jiho directly. He met her gaze, refusing to look away, even though everything in him screamed to bow to show respect. But he was human, and humans looked problems in the eye. "You are Ji Hung," she said, "human cargo pilot, 28 years old. You have no wife, no children. Your parents are dead. You have one sister on Earth. You've done your homework." Jay said, "I know everything about the person who touched my daughter," the queen replied. Her voice was cold, but not cruel. "My scanners have analyzed every moment of your time together. You fed her your water when you had little. You gave her your only jacket when she was cold. You fought a night stalker with nothing but a plasma torch to keep her safe. You suffered injuries defending her. Anyone would have done the same," Jiho said. "No," Queen Ashira said firmly. They would not. Most species would have left her to die, fearing contact with unknown biology. Some would have tried to ransom her. You simply helped because she needed help. This is noted. The queen moved closer. Even kneeling, Lyra barely reached Jiho's waist. Queen Ashira stood eye to eye with him, studying his face. My daughter calls you protector in our language, she said. She refuses to let you go. She cries when you are not near. In 3 days, you have become more important to her than most of her own people. This presents a situation. What kind of situation? Jiho asked carefully. The kind where I must decide your fate? Queen Ashira said. You have saved the heir to the Althean throne. By our oldest laws, you are owed a debt that cannot be repaid with money or titles. You are owed life for life, blood for blood. Lyra tugged on Jiho's hand and looked up at him with those big eyes. She smiled, and Jay couldn't help but smile back. Queen Ashira saw this, and her expression softened just slightly. My daughter has chosen you, Jang, and when a princess of Althea chooses her protector, not even a queen can refuse. I don't understand, Jiho said. You will, the queen replied. Soon enough, you will understand everything. They brought Jiho to a different room on the ship. This one had large windows showing the stars outside. The planet Velerin was already far behind them, shrinking to a small green dot. They were traveling faster than light, moving through space in ways human ships could only dream about. Queen Ashira sat on a chair that looked like a throne made of floating crystal. Princess Lyra sat beside her, though she kept looking at Jiho. Commander Dejo stood at attention nearby. There were others too, important-looking Altheons in robes of different colors. Some looked curious, others looked angry. Jiho-kan, the queen began formally. You have invoked an ancient law whether you meant to or not. By saving royal blood with risk to your own life, you have earned the highest honor in our society. You have also earned the greatest burden. I didn't ask for any honor, Jiho said. I just want to go home. One of the robed Althons, an older one with silver skin, spoke sharply in their language. The queen raised her hand, silencing him. I know you wish to return to Earth, she said. But the law is clear. You must remain with Princess Lyra as her personal guardian until she reaches adulthood. This is called the vow of guardianship. It is not a request, it is a requirement. Jiho felt like he had been punched in the stomach. How long is that? 15 cycles in our measurement. Approximately 20 of your Earth years. 20 years. Jay's voice rose. You want me to stay here for 20 years? Not here, Queen Ashira corrected. You will live in the Imperial Palace on Althea Prime. You will be given quarters, provisions, everything you need. You will be honored above most in our empire. I don't care about honor, Jiho said. I have a sister on Earth. Her name is Hana. She's waiting for me to come home. Our parents died when we were young. We only have each other. I promised her I'd come back. For the first time, something like sympathy crossed the queen's face. I understand family bonds. I have a daughter, as you know. But the law exists for a reason. If you refuse, it will be seen as an insult to our entire empire. Your Earth is still young in the galaxy. You have few allies, few defenses. An insult to Althea could have consequences. So you're threatening my whole planet? Jiho asked. I am explaining reality, the queen said calmly. I do not make threats. I state facts. You saved my daughter. You are bound to her now, by law, and by her own choice. This is the way it has been for thousands of years. Jiho ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Lyra stood up and walked over to him. She took his hand and spoke in her language. The sounds were gentle, pleading. She pulled at his hand, trying to make him understand. She says you are her protector, the queen translated. She says she feels safe with you. She says please don't leave her. Looking down at the small princess, Jiho felt his anger fade a little. She was just a child who had been scared and hurt. She didn't understand galactic politics or ancient laws. She just knew that this strange human had helped her when she needed it most. Can I at least talk to my sister? Jiho asked. Can I explain this to her? The queen nodded to Dejo, who brought over a communication device. You may speak with her. We will give you privacy. Everyone left the room except Lyra, who refused to go. The queen sighed but allowed her to stay. The door closed, and Jiho activated the device. It took a few minutes to connect across the vast distance between ships, but finally, a face appeared on the screen. Jiho. Hana's face was filled with relief. She looked older than he remembered. worry lines around her eyes. Thank the stars. We heard your ship crashed. Are you okay? I'm alive, Jay said. But we need to talk. He explained everything. The crash, the princess, the rescue, the law. Hana listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. 20 years, she finally said. I know. I'm sorry, Hana. I promised I'd come home. You also promised Mom and Dad you'd help people when they needed it. Hana said softly. Remember? Before they died, Dad said our family helps others no matter what. This is different, Jiho protested. Is it? You saved a child's life. Now she needs you to stay. Hana smiled sadly. I'll miss you every single day. But I'm proud of you, big brother. You did the right thing. The right thing feels terrible, Jiho protested. It usually does. Hana agreed. But I'll be here waiting. 20 years. 200 years. Doesn't matter. You're my brother. I'll wait. They talked for a while longer about small things, memories from their childhood. When the communication ended, Jiho felt hollow inside. He looked at Lyra, who watched him with concerned eyes. The door opened again. Queen Ashira entered alone this time. She looked at Jiho's face and seemed to understand what he was feeling. Your sister is wise, she said quietly. I listened to your conversation. I apologize for the intrusion, but I needed to understand you better. You spied on us, Jiho said flatly. Yes, I am a queen. I do what is necessary. She sat down across from him. I know this is not what you wanted. If I could change our laws, I might consider it. But I cannot. These laws have kept our empire stable for millennia. They bind us together across 1,000 worlds. Why does she need me specifically? Jiho asked. You have thousands of guards, soldiers, protectors. Because she chose you, the queen said simply. And because you have something our people have forgotten. You acted without thinking of reward or consequence. You helped because it was right. This is rare even among humans. It is almost unknown among Altheans. She stood and walked to the window looking out at the stars. I have ruled for 300 years, Jihang. I have seen species rise and fall. I have made decisions that saved billions, and decisions that cost millions. Do you know what I have learned? What? Jiho asked. That sometimes, the smallest choice by the smallest person creates the biggest change. She turned to look at him. You could have walked away from that crashed ship. You could have ignored the crying. Instead, you climbed through dangerous wreckage to save a child you had never met. That choice brought you here, and now you must make another choice. You said, I don't have a choice, Jiho pointed out. Legally, no. But personally, yes. You can stay and hate every moment, making both yourself and my daughter miserable. Or you can stay and make the best of it. You can teach her about your people, your culture, your way of thinking. You can be truly present, not just a guard standing in the corner. Jiho thought about his sister's words, about his father's advice to help people who needed it, about the small princess who called him protector. If I agree, Jiho said slowly, I want some things in return. Queen Ashira raised an eyebrow. You dare to make demands of a queen? You're asking me to give up 20 years of my life? Yeah, I dare. A smile crossed her face, the first real smile he had seen. Speak. I want to talk to my sister regularly. I want human food and some things from Earth, to remind me of home. I want to learn your language properly, not just listen to translations. And I want to be treated like a person, not a servant. Agreed, the queen said without hesitation. You will have all of this and more. You will live in the royal wing of the palace. You will eat at our table. You will be respected as the one who saved the heir to the throne. This I promise. She held out her hand. Jiho looked at it, then took it. Her skin was warm, humming with energy just like Lyra's. Then, I'll stay, Jiho said. For her? Not for you or your empire. For that little girl who just wants to feel safe. That is acceptable, Queen Ashira said. Welcome to the Althean Empire, Protector Jang. Alpha Prime was not a planet. It was a structure so massive that it made human space stations look like toys. The orbital palace hung in space around a beautiful blue star, home to 50 million beings from across the empire. It was a city, a military base, and the center of galactic power, all in one. Jiho stood at the window of his new quarters, staring at the view. His rooms were in the royal wing, as the queen had promised. They were larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls shifted colors based on his mood, soft blues when he was calm, darker shades when he was stressed. The furniture adjusted to his body automatically. Even the bed seemed to know exactly how soft or firm he needed it, but it wasn't home. "You look sad," a voice said behind him. Geo turned to see Lyra standing in the doorway. She wore a simple dress of crystal fabric that sparkled when she moved. In the weeks since they had arrived, she had barely left his side. "Just thinking about Earth," Jiho said. He had been learning the Althan language and could now understand about half of what people said. He spoke to Lyra in a mix of both languages. "Tell me about Earth," Lyra said, climbing onto the chair next to him. This was her favorite thing, hearing stories about his home planet. She loved hearing about rain that didn't burn, about animals that didn't try to eat you, about simple things like ice cream and beaches. Jiho told her about the ocean, how it stretched out forever, blue and green, and full of life. Lyra listened with wide eyes, asking questions in her musical voice. These moments were easy. It was the rest of the time that was hard. The palace was a maze of rules and traditions. Jiho had to learn how to greet nobles properly, which colors meant what rank, where he could walk, and where he couldn't. The Althan court was filled with people who had lived for hundreds of years, and thought humans were barely better than children. Most of the nobles hated that Jiho lived in the royal wing. They whispered when he walked by, speaking in rapid Altheon, that he couldn't quite follow. Some were more direct with their displeasure. Lord Janho, a high-ranking noble with dark purple skin, had confronted Jiho in a hallway just yesterday. "You do not belong here, human," Janho had said in English, making sure Jiho understood. "You are an accident, a temporary inconvenience. The princess will outgrow her attachment to you, and then you will be cast out like garbage." Jiho had walked away without responding. What could he say? The noble was probably right. He was out of place here. A human, in a palace of crystals and starlight. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. A young man entered human-like Jiho, wearing work clothes and carrying a toolkit. "Jiho Kang," the man asked in Korean. "I'm Kwan. I work in engineering. Heard there was another human in the palace. Had to come meet you." Jiho felt relief wash over him. Another human. Someone who would understand. "Come in," he said quickly. "Please." Juan sat down and they talked for hours. Kwan had been working on Althea Prime for 5 years, maintaining the human technology that the Althans had purchased. He explained how the palace worked, where to find real coffee, which nobles to avoid. "Lord Janho is the worst," Juan said. "He thinks humans are beneath him. Most of the old families do. They've been at the top of the food chain for thousands of years. They don't like sharing power." "I'm not trying to take power," Gio said. "I'm just trying to keep a little girl safe." "Yeah, well, that little girl is the heir to the biggest empire in the galaxy," Kwan pointed out. "Anyone who influences her is dangerous in their eyes. Watch your back, friend. Court politics here can get deadly." Kwan left eventually, but he promised to visit again. Jiho felt less alone, knowing there was at least one person here who understood what it was like to be human in an alien world. Days turned into weeks. Jiho fell into a routine. Mornings were spent with Lyra, teaching her about Earth while she taught him about Alan culture. Afternoons were for training. Commander Dejo insisted that if Jiho was going to be a royal protector, he needed to know how to fight properly. The combat sessions were brutal. Althan warriors were stronger and faster than humans. But Jiho had something they didn't: unpredictability. "You fight like chaos," Dejo said one day after Jiho had managed to disarm him using a move that broke 3 different rules of formal combat. "It is effective, but undisciplined. I learned to fight in Earth's military," Jiho said. "We don't have rules when people are trying to kill us. We just try to survive." Dejo seemed to respect that. He started teaching Jiho Althean combat techniques, but encouraged him to adapt them to his own style. The other guards watched these sessions with interest. Some even started copying Jiho's techniques. Evenings were the hardest. That was when Jiho felt most alone. He would talk to Hana on the communication device, but the conversations made his heart ache. She would tell him about her life, her job, her friends, and he had nothing to share except stories about aliens and palace politics. 1 month after arriving, everything changed. Jiho was walking Lyra back to her rooms after dinner, when alarms started blaring. Guards ran through the hallways, weapons ready. Commander Dejo appeared, grabbing Jiho's arm. Get the princess to her safe room. Now, what's happening? Jiho demanded. Assassins in the palace. Move. Jiho scooped Lyra into his arms and ran. She clung to him, frightened by the alarms and the running guards. He knew where her safe room was. A reinforced chamber near the queen's quarters. But the hallway was blocked. 3 figures in black armor stood between him and safety. They saw Jiho and raised their weapons. Energy blast scorched the walls where Jiho had been standing. He ducked around a corner, his heart pounding. Hyra was crying, her skin flashing bright colors in her panic. It's okay, Jiho whispered. I've got you. He couldn't go forward. The assassins were too well positioned, so he went sideways through a service corridor that Quan had shown him. It was narrow and dark, used by maintenance workers. The assassins didn't know about it. Jiho ran through the dark passages holding Lyra tight. Behind him he heard shouts. They had figured out where he went. He ran faster, his lungs burning. There was an exit ahead leading to the gardens. He burst through the door into the open air. The gardens were beautiful, full of plants from 100 worlds, but they offered no protection. Jiho looked around frantically, trying to find somewhere to hide. One of the assassins stepped out of the shadows ahead, then another from the side, 3 total surrounding him. They spoke in harsh voices, demanding he hand over the princess. Jiho set Lyra down behind him. Stay back, he told her. He had no weapon. The assassins had energy rifles. By all logic, he was dead. But Jiho had learned something in his month of training with Daejo. Althons fought with honor, with rules, with discipline. These assassins expected him to do the same. He didn't. Jiho grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it at the nearest assassin's face. While the assassin was blinded, Jiho rushed forward and tackled him. They hit the ground hard, and Jiho grabbed the rifle. He'd never used an energy weapon before, but the trigger was obvious enough. He fired. The blast caught the second assassin in the chest, dropping him instantly. The third assassin fired back, but Jiho was already moving, rolling behind a garden statue. The blast destroyed the statue, but Jiho was already somewhere else firing again. The fight lasted maybe 30 seconds. When it was over, all 3 assassins were down. Jiho stood over them, breathing hard. The rifle still pointed at them. His hands were shaking. Guards poured into the garden, led by Commander Daejo. They looked at Jiho, then at the unconscious assassins, then back at Jiho. Daejo's expression was unreadable. You defeated 3 trained killers, Joe said slowly, alone with no weapon. I had motivation, Jiho said, looking at Lyra. She ran to him, and he picked her up. She was crying but unheard. Queen Ashira arrived moments later, her face a mask of fury and fear. She saw Lyra safe in Jiho's arms, and some of the tension left her body. She walked over and gently touched her daughter's face, speaking soft words in Althon. Then she looked at Jiho. You saved her again. That's my job, Jiho said simply. The queen studied him for a long moment. Perhaps, she said quietly, you are exactly where you need to be. 6 months had passed since the assassination attempt. Security in the palace was tighter now, and Jiho had earned respect among the guards. They no longer whispered about the human who didn't belong. Instead, they nodded to him in the hallways, some even asking him to teach them his fighting techniques. But new problems had arrived at the palace doors. Rebellion stirred in the outer colonies, systems far from Althea Prime, where the Empire's control was weaker. Planets were refusing to pay their taxes, attacking Althean ships, and some were even forming alliances against the throne. Queen Ashira called a council meeting. Jiho was surprised when Commander Daejo told him he was required to attend. Guardians didn't usually participate in imperial politics, but the queen had specifically requested his presence. The council chamber was enormous, with a ceiling that showed the stars in real time. Dozens of nobles and military commanders sat in a circle around the queen's throne. Jiho stood behind Lyra's smaller seat, uncomfortable with all the attention. The situation in the Outer Rim grows worse. Admiral Sora reported. She was an older Althean with silver skin and sharp eyes. 3 more systems have joined the rebellion. They're calling themselves the Free Colonies now. They demand independence from the Empire. Then we crush them, Lord Jono said. His voice was hard and cold. Send the fleet. Destroy their ships. Blockade their planets until they beg for mercy. This is how we have always handled rebellion. Several nobles agreed loudly. The queen sat silently, listening to them argue about firepower and military strategy. Jiho watched her face and saw something there, a tiredness that surprised him. "And how many will die?" the queen asked quietly. The room fell silent. "How many alien soldiers? How many colonists? How many children like my daughter? They chose rebellion," Junho said. "They must face the consequences." "Perhaps," the queen said. "But I wonder if we have asked why they rebel. What drives people to risk everything against an empire that has stood for 10,000 years?" The nobles looked confused. This wasn't how things were done. You didn't ask why people rebelled. You simply stopped them. Jiho found himself speaking before he thought about it. Maybe they're tired of being ruled by people who are too far away to understand their problems. Every head turned to look at him. Junho's face twisted with anger. The human speaks out of turn. This is not his place. "I invited him to speak," Queen Ashira said calmly. "Continue." JJ took a breath. "On Earth, we had rebellions too. Colonies that wanted independence from their home countries. Sometimes they happened because the people in charge were too far away, too disconnected. They made laws that didn't make sense for the colonists. They took resources but gave nothing back. Eventually, people got angry enough to fight." "What did your people do?" the queen asked. "Sometimes they fought and everyone lost, but sometimes they talked. They found compromises. They gave the colonies more control over their own affairs while still being part of the larger whole." "Weakness," Junho spat. "The Empire does not negotiate with rebels. The Empire has been doing the same thing for thousands of years," Jiho said. "Maybe that's the problem." The room erupted in angry voices. Nobles shouted at Jiho at each other at the queen. Lyra grabbed Jiho's hand, frightened by all the yelling. He squeezed her hand gently. Queen Ashira raised her hand and silence fell instantly. "I will consider all options," she said. "This council is dismissed." As everyone left, the queen gestured for Jiho to stay. When the room was empty, except for her, Lyra, and Commander Dijo, she spoke. "You take dangerous risks speaking to nobles like that," she said. "You asked for my thoughts," Jay replied. "I did, and you gave them honestly, knowing it would make you enemies." She studied him. "This interests me. Most people tell me what they think I want to hear. You tell me what you actually think. Is there a difference?" Jiho asked. For the first time since he had met her, Queen Ashira laughed. It was a genuine sound, warm and real. "With you? Apparently not." 2 weeks later, the queen made a shocking announcement. She would lead the fleet personally to the Outer Rim, not to attack, but to negotiate. And she was taking Princess Lyra with her. The nobles were horrified. Take the heir into a war zone. Madness. But the queen was firm. She wanted the rebels to see that she cared enough to come herself, to bring what was most precious to her. "And you will come too," she told Jiho. "My daughter will not go without her protector." The flagship of the Althan fleet was called the Star Crown. It was massive, large enough to carry 10,000 crew members and weapons that could destroy planets. Jiho stood on the bridge next to Lyra, watching as the ship jumped through space toward the Outer Rim. The queen stood at the center of the bridge, giving orders with calm authority. She wore armor instead of her robes, practical and beautiful at the same time. She looked every inch the warrior queen her people needed. They arrived at the disputed system within days. The rebel fleet was waiting. Hundreds of ships compared to the queen's 50. It should have been a massacre, but the queen had not come to fight. She opened communication channels and spoke directly to the rebel leaders. She listened to their complaints, their anger, their frustration. She didn't make promises she couldn't keep, but she didn't threaten either. She simply talked. The negotiations lasted for 3 days. Jiho sat in on many of the meetings, watching the queen work. She was brilliant, finding common ground where none seemed to exist, offering compromises that satisfied both sides. But the rebel leaders were suspicious. They had been promised things before and been betrayed. On the 3rd night, the main rebel leader, a man named Admiral Kyung from one of the outer colonies, made a demand. "We want proof that you understand our lives. You've ruled from your palace for 300 years. What do you know about struggling to survive?" The room was tense. The queen's advisors waited for her to respond with anger. Instead, she did something unexpected. She asked Jiho to speak. "Tell them about your life before the palace," she said. Jiho was confused, but he complied. He talked about growing up poor on Earth, about losing his parents young, about working hard jobs just to survive. He talked about his sister Hana, about taking care of her while barely being able to take care of himself. He talked about the cargo runs on dangerous routes because they paid better. The rebels listened. These were things they understood. Struggle, loss, survival. This man came from nothing. The queen said he had no power, no wealth, no noble birth. Yet when he found my daughter hurt and alone, he saved her, not because he had to, not because it would benefit him, but because it was right. He has taught me that wisdom doesn't come from age or power. It comes from understanding struggle. She stood and looked directly at Admiral Kyong. You are right. I have been distant. I have ruled from far away, making decisions without understanding their true cost. This will change. I propose a new system. Each outer colony will elect representatives. These representatives will have real power to make local laws and control local resources. You will still be part of the empire, still protected by our fleet, still connected to our trade networks, but you will govern yourselves in matters that affect only you. The rebels exchanged looks. This was more than they had hoped for. Why should we trust you? Kyong asked. Because I am leaving the most important person in my life here as proof of my good faith, the queen said. She gestured to Lyra. My daughter will live among you for 1 year, learning about your colonies, your culture, your struggles, and her protector will be with her. If I betray this agreement, you will have the heir to the throne as your hostage. The bridge erupted in shocked voices. Dejo stepped forward, protesting. The queen's advisors looked horrified. Lyra grabbed Jiho's hand, confused. But Jiho understood what the queen was doing. She was betting everything on trust, on the belief that people would respond to genuine respect and good faith. Admiral Kong was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded. We accept your terms, Your Majesty. The agreement was signed that night. The rebellion ended without a single shot fired. The rebels became the Outer Colonies Council, with real representation in the Empire's government for the first time. Later, Jiho found the queen alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. He walked up beside her. That was risky, he said. Everything worth doing is risky. She replied. You taught me that. You risked your life for my daughter without knowing if she was important, if there would be any reward, if you would even survive. You just did what was right. I'm just one person, Jiho said. One person who changed the course of an empire. She turned to look at him. Do you know what the hardest part of being queen is, Jiho? What? The loneliness. I have advisors, servants, guards, millions of subjects, but no one who speaks to me honestly. No one who sees past the crown. Her voice was soft, vulnerable in a way he had never heard before. Until you argue with me. You challenge my decisions. You treat me like a person, not a goddess. You are a person, Jay said. You're just a person with a really hard job. She smiled at that. 300 years I have ruled. Thousands of advisors, countless nobles and diplomats. None of them have ever said something so simple and so true. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Jiho realized that somewhere along the way, he had stopped seeing her as just a queen. She was smart, strong, lonely, and trying her best to do right. Boner had become 2 years. 2 years had become 3. Jiho had lived in the palace longer than he had lived anywhere since leaving Earth. The strange had become familiar. The alien had become normal. He could speak Altheon fluently now, understood their customs, even enjoyed some of their food. Lyra had grown too. She was taller now, her crystalline skin shifting through more complex colors as she matured. She was smart and curious, asking questions about everything. She studied both Althen and human history, learning from the best teachers in the Empire, but her favorite lessons were still the ones Jiho taught her, stories about Earth and what it meant to be human. But something else had changed too, something Jiho tried not to think about. His relationship with Queen Ashira had shifted in ways he didn't quite understand. She sought his advice on matters both small and large. They had dinner together often, just the 3 of them like a family. She laughed at his jokes, listened to his stories, and shared her own worries and hopes in quiet moments. Jiho caught himself looking forward to seeing her. He noticed small things, like how her skin glowed brighter when she was happy, or how she touched her crown when she was nervous, even though it floated above her head. He found himself wanting to make her smile to ease the burden she carried. This was dangerous. She was a queen. He was a human who would age and die while she lived for centuries more. There was no future in these feelings. So Jiho pushed them down and tried to focus on his duty. Then Ambassador Taeyang arrived from Earth. and everything fell apart. Jiho hadn't seen Taeyang since the early days at the palace. The ambassador was older now, his hair gray at the temples. He requested a private meeting with Jiho, away from the queen and her court. They met in one of the human quarters, where Quan and other Earth workers lived. Taeyang looked uncomfortable, like he was carrying bad news. "Earth wants you to come home," Taeyang said without preamble. Jiho's heart jumped. "What? Why now? I still have 17 years left on the agreement. Politics have changed on Earth," Taeyang explained. "There's been a shift in government. The new leaders are pushing an anti-alien agenda. They're saying that humans shouldn't serve aliens, that you're basically a slave to the Althean Empire. They're using you as a symbol of everything wrong with our relationship with other species." "That's ridiculous," Jiho said. "I'm not a slave. I chose to stay. I know that, you know that. But the politicians don't care about truth. They care about votes." Taeyang rubbed his tired eyes. "Earth's government is demanding your return. They're threatening to cut diplomatic ties with Althea if the Queen doesn't release you. She can't just release me. The law was made by Altheons, not humans. Earth is arguing that no human law agreed to this, that you were coerced." Taeyang looked at him seriously. "This could cause a real crisis between our species and theirs. Wars have started over less." Jiho sat down heavily. "What does the Queen say?" "I haven't told her yet. I wanted to talk to you first." Taeyang leaned forward. "Jay, I need to know. Do you want to come home? If you do, I'll fight for you. I'll make sure you get back to Earth safely." Did he want to go home? Jiho thought about Earth, about his sister Hana, about the life he had left behind. He thought about walking in rain that didn't burn, eating food from his childhood, speaking his language without having to think about it. Then he thought about Lyra, who had become like a daughter to him. He thought about the palace, which had somehow become familiar. He thought about Queen Ashira, and the way she looked at him, sometimes like he was something precious and rare. "I don't know," Jiho admitted. "I miss Earth. I miss my sister. But this place, these people, they've become important to me too." "You have feelings for the Queen," Taeyang said. It wasn't a question. "Is it that obvious?" Jiho asked. "To anyone paying attention, yes." Taeyang smiled sadly. "Does she know?" "No. And it doesn't matter. She's a queen. I'm just a human cargo pilot who got lucky, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it," Taeyang said. "Either way, you need to decide soon. Earth won't wait forever. And every day this drags on, the political situation gets worse." That night, Jiho couldn't sleep. He stood on his balcony, looking out at the artificial sky of the palace. Tomorrow, he would have to tell the Queen about Earth's demands. Tomorrow, everything would change again. A soft sound made him turn. Queen Ashira stood in his doorway. She rarely came to his quarters, and never this late. "Something was wrong. Taeyang told me," she said quietly, "about Earth's demands." "He wasn't supposed to tell you yet," Jiho said. "I am the Queen. People tell me things whether they are supposed to or not." She walked onto the balcony beside him. "Is it true? Do you want to leave?" "I don't know what I want anymore," Theo said honestly. They stood in silence for a moment. Finally, Ashira spoke. "When you first came here, I saw you as a problem to solve. A human who had saved my daughter and needed to be managed. But over these years, you have become something different." "What?" Ju asked. "Someone I trust. Someone whose opinion I value above my oldest advisors. Someone who makes my daughter laugh and teaches her to think in new ways." She paused. "Someone who makes me feel less alone." Jay's breath caught. "Your Majesty, Ashira," she corrected. "When we are alone, I am just Ashira." "Ashira," he repeated, her name strange and beautiful on his tongue. "I'm human. I'll be dead in 70 years, while you'll still be ruling. There's no future. I have lived for 300 years. Ashira interrupted. "I will likely live for 300 more. Do you know what that means? It means I have watched everyone I cared about age and die. My parents, my friends, my first consort who gave me Lyra. Everyone leaves eventually. I accepted loneliness as the price of immortality long ago." She turned to face him directly. "But you made me forget that loneliness. For the first time in a century, I look forward to each day. I wake up wondering what strange human idea you will share, what new way of thinking you will show me. 70 years with you would be worth 1,000 years alone." "You're saying Jiho couldn't finish the sentence." I am saying that I have feelings for you. Jihong. Inappropriate feelings for a queen to have for her daughter's guardian. Foolish feelings for an immortal to have for a mortal, but feelings nonetheless. Jiho stared at her, his mind racing. The most powerful being in 1,000 star systems was standing on his balcony, confessing that she cared for him. It was insane. It was impossible. It was wonderful and terrifying at the same time. I care about you too, he admitted. I've been trying not to. Trying to focus on my duty. On Lyra. On anything, except how I feel when you walk into a room. Ashira smiled, and her skin glowed with warm colors. Then we are both fools. What do we do? Jiho asked. That depends on you. Ashira's expression turned serious. I can send you home. Earth demands it. And I will not start a war over one person, even one I care for deeply. You can return to your sister, to your life, to your people. I will not hold you against your will. And if I stay, Chiho asked, then stay as yourself, not as a guardian bound by duty. Stay because you choose to. And let us see where this path leads, however short or long it may be. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin hummed with energy, warm and alive. But choose freely, Jiho. Choose with your whole heart. Before Jiho could answer, Lyra's voice called from inside his quarters. Jiho, mother, why are you both here? They turned to see the princess standing in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She had been having nightmares lately, and often came to Jiho's rooms for comfort. We were just talking, Ashira said gently. Come here, little star. Lyra walked over and hugged her mother, then Jiho. She stood between them, holding both their hands. I had a bad dream. I dreamed that Jiho left and never came back. Ashira and Jiho exchanged looks over Lyra's head. The princess looked up at Jiho with worried eyes. Are you leaving? Lyra asked. Taeyong said, Earth wants you back. I don't know yet, Jiho said honestly. He knelt down to her level. Would you be sad if I left? Very sad, Lyra said. Tears filled her crystalline eyes. You're my protector, my teacher, my teacher. She struggled to find the right word in Alan, then switched to English, my family. Chiho felt his heart break and mend at the same time. He looked at this girl who had become like a daughter and her mother who had become something more. He thought about his sister Hana back on Earth, and what she had told him years ago, that he should choose happiness. I need to make a call, Chiho said. The communication screen lit up with Hana's face. She looked older now with lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 3 years ago. But her smile was the same. Jiho, she said warmly. I wasn't expecting a call today. Is everything okay? I need your advice, Jay said. He was alone in his quarters. Queen Ashira had taken Lyra back to bed, giving him privacy for this conversation. Earth wants me to come home. Hana's expression changed. I heard about that. It's all over the news here. They're making you into some kind of political symbol. I can leave if I want to, Ja continued. The queen said she won't force me to stay. I could be home in a few weeks. But you don't want to leave, Hana said. It wasn't a question. I miss you so much it hurts, Jay admitted. I miss Earth. I miss rain and oceans and food that actually tastes like food. But you've built a life there, Hana finished. And there's someone, isn't there? Someone who makes you want to stay. Jiho nodded. The queen, Ashira. I know it sounds crazy. She's an alien. She'll live forever. She rules billions of people. But Hana, when I'm with her, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And Lyra, the princess, she's become like family too. Hana was quiet for a moment. Do you remember what Mom used to say about happiness? That it's not something you find, it's something you build. Jiho recited. Their mother had said it often, especially after their father died. Right. And it sounds like you've built something good there, big brother. Hana smiled, though her eyes were sad. I miss you every day, but I want you to be happy more than I want you to be close. If staying there makes you happy, then stay. What about Earth's government, the political crisis? Let me worry about that. I've got friends in the new administration. I can help calm things down from this side. Hana leaned closer to the screen. Jiho, you saved a child's life and got tangled up with an empire. You could have been bitter and angry about it. Instead, you found love and family. That's not something to walk away from, just because some politicians want to make you a pawn in their game. I love you, Hana, Jiho said. I love you too. Now, go tell that queen of yours how you feel, And visit Earth sometime, okay? I want to meet this woman who stole my brother's heart." The call ended, and Jiho sat in the dark for a while thinking. Then he made his decision. The next morning, Jiho went to the throne room. Queen Ashiro was holding court listening to petitions from various nobles and officials. He waited until there was a break in the proceedings. "Your Majesty," he said formally, stepping forward. "I have an answer to the question you asked me." The entire court fell silent. Everyone knew what question he meant. Word had spread quickly about Earth's demands, and the choice Jiho had to make. "Speak," Queen Ashira said, her voice carefully neutral. "I'm staying," Jiho said. "Not because of duty or law or politics. I'm staying because I choose to. Because this place has become my home. Because Lyra needs me, and because—" He paused, very aware of all the eyes watching him. "Because you asked me to stay, and I find I cannot refuse you anything." Whispers rippled through the court. Lord Janho looked furious, but Queen Ashira smiled, and that smile made everything worth it. "Then we must make this official," the queen said. She stood from her throne. "Jiho Kang has served as my daughter's guardian for 3 years. In that time, he has proven his worth beyond any doubt. He saved her life twice. He brought new ideas that ended a rebellion without bloodshed. He has earned the respect of our warriors and the love of our princess. Now, I propose something unprecedented." She walked down the steps until she stood directly in front of Jiho. "I propose that Jiho Kang be named royal consort, with all the rights and responsibilities the title carries. He will not be a servant or a guardian. He will be family. He will be an equal partner in raising the heir to the throne, and he will stand beside me as my chosen companion." The court erupted. Nobles shouted in protest. This had never been done before. A human as royal consort. It was unthinkable. "The law does not forbid it," Queen Ashira said calmly, silencing the protests. "Any being of any species may become royal consort if the queen chooses them. I choose Jiho Kang." "And what does the human say?" Lord Janho demanded. "Does he even understand what he's agreeing to?" "I understand," Jay said. "I'm agreeing to spend my life with people I care about, to help raise a girl who's already like a daughter to me, to stand beside a woman I respect and care for deeply, to bridge the gap between humans and Altheons. That's what I'm agreeing to." He turned to face the queen directly. "But I have my own terms. I won't just be a symbol or a trophy. I want real responsibilities. I want to help establish proper relations between Earth and Althea. I want to create programs that bring more humans here as equals, not servants. I want to make sure what happened to me, being forced to stay, never happens to anyone else. Any future humans who come here will come by choice." "Agreed," Queen Ashira said immediately. "All of it. And I want our joining ceremony to include both human and Althan traditions," Jiho added. "If I'm going to represent humanity in your court, then humanity should be part of this union." "Also agreed," the queen said. Her eyes were bright, her skin glowing with happy colors. "Is there anything else?" Jiho thought for a moment. "Yes. I want Hana, my sister, to be here for the ceremony, and my friend Quan. And I want this broadcast to Earth so everyone can see that I'm choosing this freely. No one is forcing me. This is my choice." "Then it will be done," Queen Ashira declared. She turned to address the court. "The ceremony will take place 1 month from today. We will marry under the light of the stars, joining human and Althan, in a bond that will strengthen both our peoples. Any who oppose this may voice their concerns now." Lord Janho stepped forward. "I oppose it. This human will die in a few decades. You will be alone again, Majesty. Why bind yourself to something so temporary? Because temporary things are precious, precisely because they are temporary," the queen replied. "I have lived for 300 years, and I may live for 300 more. But I will never have another chance to spend a lifetime with someone like Zhang. That makes these decades infinitely valuable." No one else spoke against it. Even Junho retreated knowing he was defeated. The next month passed in a blur of preparations. Hana arrived from Earth, and Jiho nearly cried when he saw her in person for the first time in 3 years. She hugged him tight and whispered, "She better be worth it or I'm stealing you back." Then she met Ashira and Lyra, and Jiho watched his human family and his chosen Althan family come together. Hana and Lyra bonded over embarrassing stories about Jiho. Hana and Ashira talked for hours about what it meant to care for someone and let them go at the same time. The ceremony was held in the great hall of the palace, under a dome that showed the real stars outside. Thousands attended in person, and billions watched via broadcast across the Empire and to Earth. Jiho wore traditional Althan robes made to fit his human form, while also carrying a small piece of Earth metal from his first cargo ship, a reminder of where he came from. The ceremony mixed both cultures beautifully. They exchanged vows in both Althan and English. They performed the Althan ritual of sharing light, where Ashira's crystalline skin touched Jiho's and glowed bright enough to illuminate the entire hall. They performed the human tradition of exchanging rings, simple bands that Jiho had designed himself. Princess Lyra stood between them during the ceremony, holding both their hands. When the priest asked if anyone objected, Lyra spoke up in her clear voice. "I don't object. I want Jiho to be my father for real. I want us to be a family." There wasn't a dry eye in the hall, including Jiho's. When the ceremony ended, and they were officially joined, the crowd cheered. Ashira kissed Jiho, and her lips tasted like starlight and electricity in home all at once. Later, at the celebration feast, Ambassador Taeyang approached Jiho. "You know this doesn't completely solve the political problems on Earth, right?" "I know," Jiho said, "but it's a start. Seeing a human and an Altham joined as equals, raising a child together, building a life together, that changes the narrative. It shows cooperation is possible." "You've certainly changed things," Taeyang agreed. "The boy who crashed on a jungle planet has become the royal consort of the Althan Empire." "That's quite a journey." "The journey's not over," Jiho said, looking at Ashira across the room. She was talking with Hana and Lyra, laughing at something his sister said. "It's just beginning." That night, Jiho stood on a balcony with Ashira, watching the stars. Lyra was asleep in her room, happy and safe. Hana was in guest quarters, planning to stay for a few months before returning to Earth. Everything felt right in a way it hadn't for years. "Do you regret it?" Ashira asked quietly. "Giving up your life on Earth?" "I didn't give it up," Jiho said. "I traded one life for another. I think I got the better deal." "You're bound to me now," Ashira said. "When I die in a few hundred years, you'll be long gone. You'll never see the empire I build, the changes that come. But I'll help build the foundation," Jiho replied. "I'll help create the programs that bring humans and Altheons together. I'll raise Lyra to be a queen who understands that strength isn't just about power. It's about compassion and understanding. That's enough of a legacy for any human." Ashira leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture of intimacy that still surprised